Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. Today, we've got four brand new freaking decks for you. Absolutely incredible decks. We will also have like five videos over the next several days. We've got our regular videos happening. In addition, we've got the podcast releasing this week. In addition to an extra video where we're going to go over the Snap Judgments League Final Four, the top four games, and then the finals. So stay tuned for an absolute ton of content for Marvel Snap. But let's get to these four decks. We are kicking it off with Buddy's Ongoing Destroyer. And this is a really, really good and wild deck. I want to call out how clever it is to run Bucky as a potential lane winner in a destroyer deck. I think that is absolutely stellar. Like, it's genuinely hilarious. You can also save a whole bunch of cards under Invisible Woman from destroyer, as Invisible Woman will be destroyed, but unrevealed cards will not. And able to like score extra points. Professor X cards will be able to be alive, and destroyer is just so big. He's really great at winning games of Marvel Snap. This deck feels like it also might be a really good home for Fenris Wolf, the card that comes out tomorrow, in that you can just drop it. And then if you can get that trigger going after a Shang-Chi, after an early Negasonic, that seems like it might be really good to set up your Professor X. I think this list is really, really great. A bunch of people are having a ton of success with it, and I cannot give you enough urge to try it. And try it you should be able to, because this is so cheap. Nico Minoru is the single high series card in this list. This is all series 3 or lower, so please play this list. You can find Buddy playing this list at youtube.com/@buddy_snap. Go check it out. This is, again, a straight up budget winning deck. So turn 1, you want Nova. Turn 2, Daredevil over Bucky over Invisible Woman. And remember, stuff behind Invisible Woman will survive Destroyer. Turn 3 is usually another 2. You can also drop Monger behind Invisible Woman if you think that is a game-winning play. Turn 4 is Atuma, and Atuma is your way to trigger Bucky. So if you know you might not destroy her, or you just want a really, really big Professor X lane, that 17 power from Atuma into Bucky followed by Professor X is like, geez, huge. Just absolutely massive. At that point, you can hopefully end up getting the other lane one with Destroyer and whatever you played on 3, like Killmonger on 3, Negasonic into a Destroyer, so you know they couldn't put that much power in that lane, etc., etc. Turn 5 is meant to be Professor X or Negasonic. You can end up doing the Daredevil, letting you know where to Professor X for sure in order to win that lane, which is a snap condition in and of itself. And then you want Destroyer, or if you haven't played it yet, Invisible and Shang gives you like basically a guaranteed way to get that Shang off without priority. Love this deck. It is absolutely stellar, super, super powerful. We're going to take one last look at it before we go to the number 1 deck in all of Marvel Snap. Angel is really, really, really solid. If you can keep Angel in hand, if you don't get a destroy beforehand, being able to destroy her and then have Angel fly out for what amounts to 19 power is often game winning. There's just a million little plays. You can make that 19 power 21 power if you had a Nova floating around. There's just a million different ways to win with this list. Give it some play. You will be absolutely amazed at all the different cool things you'll be able to do for a pure Series 3 deck. Buffing Angel, buffing Daredevil, buffing Destroyer, nerfing Professor X, but like multiple cards, recent buffs to Negasonic, multiple different changes have made this a really, really powerful deck. The meta, if you're not seeing a ton of move, this has a really solid game plan against basically everything else. Before we go further, please hit that sub button if you're willing to. We're trying to hit 16,000 subs before the end of 2024. We're about 700 away, a little less than 700 away. If you're willing to hit that sub button, it does a great job at helping us get there. In return, we will give you at least 7 videos a week, very often more than that, counting shorts, sometimes up to 15, 17 videos a week. You will get this much Marvel Snap content nowhere else on the entire of YouTube or Twitch or anywhere else. So please hit that sub button, like and comment, help us grow, help show YouTube we should be shown to more people. Liking and commenting also when you sub is a way to win a Surtur season pass. We are giving away one on a video this week. How this works is you sub and like, and I tell you later this video what comment to leave. You leave that comment, you're entered to win the season pass. We've got a Surtur season pass winner from last week happening later on in this video. Before we get there, though, it's time to talk about Luke Skywalker, number 1. Luke Skywalker is the current number 1 player in Marvel Snap. He's an Italian player, and he's playing this version of the Scar Surtur deck. I'm going to take a loss here. I thought this list would fundamentally disappear once people teched against it, but Luke figured out how to get the exact combination of cards that this is still competitive. It turns out what we really had to do sort of was end up cutting a 1 to better be able to crossbones, and then we have Luke, and Luke pulls double duty here. Luke gives you enough if you have if your opponent scorpions early, right? Or you can tell, or they're going to Cassandra Nova. If they're that type of deck, what you do is you end up dropping Luke Cage instead of Surtur, and then you're not quite as over the top powerful, but you're still able to win because Skaar and Shadow King, Skaar and Juggernaut still give you enough power. It's really, really, really strong. All right, so this Italian player is number 1. There is some mild controversy in the Marvel Snap community currently regarding the Italian meta, whereas there are claims that the Italian players are pumping the top Italian player each season to try and get them as high in the infinite leaderboard as possible. I cannot verify or deny those claims yet. I'm looking into it. I plan to ask some of the Italian players I know in order to better find out. But either way, even if the country of Italy is pumping this one player, you don't play enough Italians at the top of the infinite leaderboard, right? Like I watch Sizer all the time. Sizer streams for like 9 hours a day. He plays a couple Italians here and there. This deck is clearly still doing enough to be near the top of the infinite leaderboard. This deck needs Skaar, Surtur, Cull, and Zabu. Nico can be Iceman or Hydra Bob. And I've decided Hydra Bob is one word because that's the way I say it. So it needs Iceman or Hydra Bob in replacement for Nico. You do need the other 4, though. There's not really another 4/10 to replace Cull. There is Warpath, but that limits you way too much. Yeah, that's the gist of it. And Skaar and Surtur are like the meta. And then you just run so many 4s who at this point need Zabu. All right. So let's go card by card. Nico is not terribly important here, but Nico often offers just a little bit of extra power. A early Nico with a destroy can turn a Shadow King into a game winner. A Nico on turn 5 could be a +2 power that could really, really help out. Like if you did get hit with for example, a Cassandra Nova and you had a Nico +2 that you can play with the Cull Obsidian, that puts it back up to making Skaar cheaper and triggering Surtur. The move just has extra utility. The location change has extra utility. She's the Swiss Army knife of cards, and thus she's in the deck. Zabu is basically always played over Nico early, though. Zabu is the most important turn 1 play in the game, although obviously if you have all 4 of your 4s in hand, that's less so. Zabu on 1 can lead to the ultimate like go off in this deck where you end up with a 19 power Surtur, which is just stupid, where you go Zabu on 1 and then you go Surtur on 3 and then you can go Atuma or whatever, 4 on 1, right? 4 on 4 on 5, 2 4s as 3s on 6 along with Skaar for 15 extra power on Surtur, which makes it a 19, which happens rarely, but does happen. So Zabu is needed for all these different silly combos. Zabu also with a free Skaar allows you to go 4 and Luke Cage or 4 and Juggernaut, which is also extremely powerful, as US Agent is all over the meta. So Zabu is an extremely important and powerful card in this list, just getting extra stuff out. It also allows for like a Nico and 10 play on 4. Armor is your safety card, right? It's just saying you will drop armor on 2, right? But like fairly often you're ending up, if your opponent's like doing the snap, I clearly have Shang-Chi thing, you can just drop armor there because this deck basically always has priority. You can also drop Shang there, but you have 10s in every lane, so Juggernaut's less good at protecting from Shang. You can drop armor there and end up still winning. Juggernaut is your lane winner, right? If you've got one lane that's relatively unchallenged, there's often a lane that people avoid until the last couple turns of the game. You can use Juggernaut to win that on the cheap. You can shove the card that they thought was going to win that lane into your giant stuff lane, the lane that has Skaar, Cull, Crossbones, all that stuff, and there's nothing they can do to really compete there while you've just put 10 million power in your lane. Luke Cage is here because the way that this deck has been answered has not really been Shang-Chi, at least in my portion of the meta. I'm ranked I don't know. I want to say either. I think I'm ranked 399 right now, something like that in that general area. If you're not seeing a ton of Shang, the other answer has been cards like Scorpion, Cassandra Nova, US Agent. Luke Cage says no, thank you. You will have to play Luke over Surtur if they're doing the Cassandra Nova or Scorpion thing. However, caveat: if they are instead doing the early Scorpion, you're good. If you can tell that they're a deck that runs US Agent as a late play, you can still save Luke Cage to play at the end of the game because he's an ongoing and be totally fine. There's a lot of ways to use Luke effectively in this list. He is extremely strong. Surtur is the engine for this deck. He's the 3 that this deck needed. He is the extra card. He is the Thena to this deck. He is the old Angela to this deck, etc., etc. He's just big. He gets big. You almost always want to get him to a 313 here at the very least. And honestly, anything above a 310 is just gravy. You have to really mess up to not get him to 310. Attuma is big and destroy stuff. The destroy stuff is actually a reasonable downside in this list. Very often the Attuma lane is one you're shouting out. It will be all your big stuff lane. He's, generally speaking, one of the last 10s I want to play, along with Typhoid Mary. However, opponents are still running just enough junk and other stuff to give him upside as well as downside. And plus, late in games, getting rid of a Zabu or a Nico that have already done their thing is not the end of the world, and you can always play him in an armor lane. Cull is easy. He's big. In many ways, he's the easiest big thing to play, especially if he's your second big thing, because you should be able to find a way to be ahead once you've played what amounts to a 3-7 and a 4-10, right? Once you're ahead with Cull, you drop him in a lane, and then you just say, great, I'm huge, good luck. Sorry, I don't know if I said Cull. I meant Crossbones. Cull is a little less consistent than you would like in this list with only 2 1s, right? But it turns out that like there's just enough random shit that makes 1s in the game, whether it puts a rock in your lane, whether it is some squirrels that pop up somewhere, that Cull ends up just being safe enough and big enough. It's the second most reliable 4-10 that you've got in this deck. He's big, he's powerful, he's expensive, but he's a lot of power here. Then we have Typhoid Mary. Typhoid Mary is like always the play if you end up getting the Luke out. Outside of that, though, Typhoid wants to be alone in a lane early. You can later drop Skaar and stuff in that lane. You can use Juggernaut to make that lane just a 12 power lane win. But early on, unless you Luke and don't Surtur, you want to get Typhoid alone. Typhoid and Attuma are sort of your alone early cards. And then, of course, Skaar is the other key along with Surtur in that basically what amounts to a 2-0-10 is insanely strong. Skaar is useless, obviously, against Mobius and Mobius. If you see Mobius, you're going to have a long game. But because Skaar is cheap, you can put up so much power in unpredictable places at the end of the game that it's often easy to just suddenly explode out and win the game of Marvel Snap. Especially when you combine that with Shadow King. So what the opponent's got a lane that they're clearly trying to scale up on, right? They're a negative list and they've dropped an 05 Iron Man. You're like, oh my god. Well, they're not going to really have power there, right? A Shadow King there will often end that nonsense right then and there and just win you the game unexpectedly, and it is a giant cube stealer. So here's the turn by turn. Turn 1, you want to play Zabu over Nico. Turn 2 is Zabu over Armor. Turn 3 is Surtur over Luke, obviously pending what the opponent has done. Turn 4, if you can get Cull out, lest there be a Killmonger that ruins your day. If not Crossbones, then Typhoid is more or less equal to Attuma. These cards can be a little weaker later to Magneto, but it is what it is. Turn 5 is another 4, and ideally a 4+1 if possible. Turn 6, the easiest play, the most likely play is you go Skaar, hopefully for free, along with a different 4-10 and Shadow King, and at that point you've won, right? It could also be Skaar and Juggernaut and Luke. It can also be Skaar and Juggernaut and Shadow King and a 1. There's a million different combinations because Skaar is usually free, and it's completely nuts. Next up, we've got a Quicksilver and Domino deck that has a 74% win rate. But first, one last look at the #1 deck in all of Marvel Snap right now, today, as we are speaking. This is the Luke Skywalker deck that is #1 on the Infinite leaderboard and has basically, you can go over the top of this, but it is not easy. And it's really hard to otherwise beat. I guess like Shang is still good against it, but it just puts up so much power. Good frickin' luck. Okay. It's time for our last chance review of Malekith. Then we're going to look at a Malekith deck. That Malekith deck that has Quicksilver and Domino. Malekith, as a 4/6 on reveal, add a 1, 2, and 3 cost card from your deck here. It reveals at the end of the game. Malekith is an extremely powerful card. The stats on this card are absolutely through the roof. It's in an absolute ton of top tier 1 decks. Some of them are cheap, like discard. Some of them are expensive, like the one we're going to look at next. Malekith is in a good ton of great decks. That said, I don't think I can recommend that you buy Malekith. The reason for that is I think that next month's cards are extraordinarily broken. I think that Anti-Venom and Malekith are 2 of the better Marvel Snap cards to release recently. They're both underrated. They're both extremely powerful in the type of mid-range cell that really climbs when you grind. But I think that there's so much high roll, so much broken stuff coming in the month of December, because remember, December is a crossover with Marvel Rivals, so those cards have to be good because they're trying to draw new players with that, right? Given that's the case, I think that unless you have an abundance of resources, you should skip on Malekith. However, if you don't have Thena, feel free to go get Malekith. If you don't have Valentina, it's looking more and more like that's a deciding factor in going to get Malekith, because those are really, really important Series 5 cards. And if you're missing important Series 5 cards and you can get both of them while getting Malekith, or all three of them while getting Malekith, it's definitely worth it, even with the broken cards coming next season. Malekith is great, genuinely excellent and top-notch card, but I don't think it's as good as like literally Penny Parker and Doom 2099, which were recently data mined. You can check that video out if you want to know what they are, coming next season. So if your resources are limited, skip Malekith unless you need the other cards. If you have enough resources and you're just sort of trying to be careful, go get Malekith. You're not going to be sad. He's incredible. If you'd like to see gameplay from the game decks in this video, please check out the stream team. Today is Monday, so Gregor2424 will be streaming at 12 p.m. Eastern. Go check him out playing these decks. The great Obihaved will have a video up later today or tomorrow with yesterday's decks as well. All right, we are at Silky Splat version 1 via 1A. Someone's going to understand that. One of the worst wrestlers ever. All right, least favorite wrestlers ever. I don't think he's terrible, but whatever. So this is Quicksilver and Domino. The way this was explained to me by Silky, I got it from Silky. It's a splat, and Silky built it together. Silky Johnson / Space, and Splat is the mad genius we talked about yesterday's deck. He also, if you checked out my stream from Saturday, we hung out in stream, and he sort of semi-coached me through one of his decks that Mobius kept killing, but it was a really good time. We had a great time together. You should check him out. We'll get to his Twitch in a minute. For America Chavez, we used to sort of be trying to push our early plays out sooner, right? Well, with Malekith, what we can do is we can push our better plays out later, right? Like we can make sure we get a Maximus at the end of the game, a Sage at the end of the game, a Juggernaut, a Luke, etc. at speed, and just make sure we have this powerful thing. Malekith being a 2-for-1 that way, it makes me more likely to see my other powerful stuff later. If I can make sure I play Malekith, I can end up getting more powerful endgame plays as a result of that combination. I think that's a really cool take. I don't know if it works for sure yet, but in 40 games, this has a 70% win rate. I only have Silky's actual stats, but he showed me Splat. He has Splat stats also, and this has a 70% win rate in over 40 games. This is going to be everywhere, I believe, relatively soon, and you might want to get on the ground floor if you can access these cards. So you can find Splat at twitch.tv/Splaticus, and Space is Silky Johnson, but you could just find him in various Discords and various streams. This deck needs 3 cards, must have: Wiccan, Sage, and Malekith. Sage is your big power play at the end. Wiccan is obviously how you have enough energy to potentially at the end do silly things. And then Malekith is absolutely incredible in this list. You're not ever really sad to see that Malekith. He's like the key card. This is built for Malekith. Shadow King has replaced Absorbing Man in the deck, but either works. I personally am playing it with Absorbing Man because I think it's more fun, honestly. I've really enjoyed Absorb Man. Do I need to play Absorb Man on this list? No, absolutely not. So I can totally understand why Shadow King is probably better here, especially with Anti-Venom in the list. Because I can, if my Malekith gets the Shadow King, I can Anti-Venom, even if I don't have Luke, play that card in the Anti-Venom lane, and then Shadow King will reveal and give it its power back, which is pretty freaking strong. Anti-Venom and Speed are not needed, though. They're just very good cards. Cassandra Nova, Killmonger, Shadow King, Absorb Man, whichever one you don't have. US Agent, those are the replacements. This is for Space, 17 and 6, 74%. Turn 1, Quicksilver. Turn 2, Domino. I know you're very surprised. Turn 3 is meant to be Luke or Speed. There, you will play Juggernaut over playing Sage here, but there are times when you'll Sage as well, just because you have Wiccan and need to. You would really rather not play Sage, though. Turn 4, you want Wiccan, if humanly possible, over Anti-Venom over Malekith. Malekith is a perfectly fine play even on turn 6. Turn 5, if you're going to Ronin, is the Ronin turn. If not, you're playing the Anti-Venom or Malekith thing. Remember that Anti-Venom Malekith with a 3 is silly. You can play Anti-Venom and Luke on the same turn on turn 5. You can play Malekith and Speed on the same turn on turn 5. You get the idea. And then turn 6 is Malekith plus Shadow King or Maximus, or Sage and Juggernaut. And either one of those is usually game and lane winning. This list is awesome. This list is genuinely awesome. Again, I love Malekith. Malekith and Anti-Venom are ridiculously fun. I had someone in chat. I've been streaming a little bit over on Twitch, Twitch named Pulse Glazer, if you're interested. And I had someone in chat being like, cards like Malekith and Anti-Venom are why people don't want to play Snap anymore. And maybe that's true, but if it's true, then we have fundamentally different tastes in Marvel Snap. Anti-Venom is a stoppable card. Malekith is a stoppable card, right? Like an Goliath, a Cosmo, etc. usually do a great job at sort of messing that up. And making it not really work. They're really fun mid-range cards that feel exceptionally fair while still being really powerful. I love the design on these cards, and I wish we got more sort of interesting mid-range things that push cool decks like them. So I think this list is awesome and worth playing, even if Butt doesn't like it, largely because of he refuses to play Quicksilver and Domino. All right, so we got a quick season pass question. So to win a season pass, the question is, how do you prefer I recommend cards, either based on power or based on context? What I'm really asking here is, I'm recommending largely that you don't buy Malekith, not because it's not powerful enough, but because I think other things coming out are better for spotlight or token usage planning purposes. Would you rather I recommend cards that way, or would you rather I just say this is powerful enough to buy and let you decide based on whatever else is coming out? You let me know what you think in that. I've really struggled with that. I think the last 2 weeks especially, as I thought actually, I guess was Anti-Venom last week? I guess Anti-Venom wasn't last week. Cards have lost all meaning. Time has lost meaning. But I really struggle with that with Anti-Venom, and now I'm struggling with that with Malekith, where these are very, very strong cards that I want to recommend, but contextually, right, with what else they require and what else is coming out, I found it hard to recommend them. Do you want me to take that kind of thing into consideration, or just say this is strong enough, get? Our winner of the season pass from last week is Shiba Churro. Shiba Churro, please reach out to me in order to claim your prize. All right, our final deck of the day is fucking wild. It's RS Berry's Peef Bounce. Longtime viewers know that I almost always hide a secret deck at the end of the video. This is today's secret deck because it's both hilarious and completely freaking awesome. I love this idea that RS Berry had. RS Berry had a deck building contest where he decided to make this. He's a top 10 to 15 player, basically always, depending on how much he plays, and he had a deck building contest. So we started playing this list, and it became his most winning list of the season, so we had to share it. RS Berry will be in the comments of this video at some point. So hi, Barry. All right. So you can find RS Berry at twitter.com/Berry1_0_O, not zero. Check him out. Sorry, I just followed Barry yesterday. I did not realize I did not follow you on Twitter, my friend. All right. So this deck needs Peef and Misery. Peef is Phoenix Force, by the way. Or you can just play the regular bounce version. Hitmonkey, Sage, Cassandra, and Black Swan are all needed. Sage and Cassandra seem like they're not necessary, but they're why the Phoenix Force and Misery are here. Black Swan is obviously how you make the Hitmonkey good, and Hitmonkey is how you win the game. So you can, if you don't have Toxin, you're fine. You can play Mysterio. Nico can be Silver Sable, Hydra Bob, or like honest to God, pick a one. It doesn't really matter. You'll be totally fine. So turn 1, you want Hood over Iceman. Turn 2, you want Swan over anything. You can still play more once. Turn 3, again, Swan over everything, except you can Cassandra Nova if you have both Phoenix Force and Misery in hand. If you want to, and I'm going to explain this slowly, I'm going to show the cards. You go Cassandra Nova on 3, you go Phoenix Force on 4. If you play Misery on that pile of cards, on that Phoenix Force and Cassandra Nova, you get a 19 power Cassandra Nova, assuming no extra draws. So you end up with a 19 power moving Cassandra Nova, and if you've triggered your Black Swan, obviously we'd have to have Black Swan on 2, you can then still make a big Hitmonkey. Or if not, you can play a couple demons, or you can still play a demon and a Rocket Nico, or a Demon Rocket Iceman. You get the idea here. If you didn't get that Black Swan out, which means you're still getting enough power to win another lane. That's awesome. This list puts up a ton of power with that combo. You can also do a similar thing with Sage, should you be so inclined and have a lane for that to make sense in. Turn 4, Swan and ones or Phoenix Force Misery on Cass and Sage. Misery on Hood is fine, but not over Black Swan. So let's say you didn't get the stuff on 3. You go Hood, you go, Toxin could also be Falcon. I meant to say that, but I got distracted. So let's say you go Hood, and then you play some other cards, you bounce them back, you drop a Black Swan on turn 3. On turn 4, you don't have anything you really want to Misery, just Misery the solo Hood, and then you've just got a second demon to play when you Black Swan at the end of the game, and you turned a -3 into a +8. So that's usually pretty fucking solid. Turn 5 is Trigger Swan, Misery on Phoenix Force Cass, or the Sage pile. The thing I explained earlier with Phoenix Force on Misery on Phoenix Force in one of the on reveals. Turn 6, play free ones, Monkey or Sage, win. Tons of cubes, no one's going to expect this. That's why it's at the end of the video. Enjoy. This is really cool. Huge, ridiculously huge props to Aris Berry for coming up with this idea. Also, if you end up getting an early Phoenix Force, like let's say you Nico off a, I don't know, um, Rocket or Sage or whatever, and then you Phoenix Force it back, right? You can still bounce that, and then you get the cheaper version because it's going to keep its base stats. It's really cool, and then you get the other armor reveal because you're replaying it. This list is awesome, friends. Awesome, million different small little plays like that, and super duper fun. Is this going to be a top meta deck? I'd be a little surprised if this ends up at the top of the meta, except that it's already at the top of the meta because Barry's at the top of the meta. But like, I don't expect this to be a widespread top meta deck. This is going to be hard to play, but this is for our people who love cool combos and want to play wildly interesting things. Questions of the day. Kazushi asks what I think of split compensation. So I don't do math. I trust those who are better at math than I am to do stuff like this. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this little website. It's called Marvel Snap Zone. Yeah, probably heard of it, right? Well, the great Lauren Whatevs, one of my favorite people, a close friend, has written a huge article that breaks down the split compensation for everyone, what it means, what people are getting. And it turns out that the split compensation is excellent for basically everyone. I'm not going to fight with the math. Please go check out that article if you'd like to hear more. But they have not only made it right, they have made it so far beyond right, even for the free-to-play players, that it is absolutely a positive. Nick the Greek Geek asks what my son wants to be when he grows up. So he wants to be a science teacher and paralegal. I'm an English teacher. My wife is a paralegal. He wants to be both of those because he loves us very much, and we love him too. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with honor. Thanks. I'd like to say thank you to the great Abigail Kiesland, Mandatory Burnout, It Regardless, David G. Wingfield, Dirty Casual, Danton, LAB, FaThorNewman, excuse me, Good Dog Gamer, Inc., I Am Frostman, Je Navarine, Thinking Poker, who's got an article that I've got sitting up right here, like 2 slides away to read when we're done here. Ryan Burke, Ryan Wood, Kiritix Lee, the King of Questions, Koi Ray, Black Dahlia, Pyrophoros, the Goat Seeker, Hallowed, Quid Pro Joe, Fat Nick, Mr. Kerfuffle, Ginger Prime, hey Ginger, Philip Rakovich, it's Ratko, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, Black Jeebus 23, X-Force V, and Skippy G Rhyming Friends, Jessica Gamble, hey Jess, Tommy frickin' Nyquist, Winner Snap Judge League Season 1, The Kingerbus Brup, The Great Kazoo, Kevsy Hoda, Lunar Chris, Corwin, John Q, Jimmy McHugh, Q-Town, Clam, Colonel Forbin, one of our military friends is Colonel Forbin, 8 Sage, Models Mod Supreme, my favorite Osborne the Green Goblin, Unibot, not a unicycle, Unibot, Flan 56, Steven, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Smart, Jason B, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrumix, Hoot, Matt H, DJ, Mikey, Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Oculars, Mr. Craig Sterry, BG, Zodrex, the King of Canada, Denman Falcon, Jonesy, Two Ties, the great Lauren Devs, hey, just said her name, the Pirate King Tucker, and of course, Gundy T, where the T stands for y'all. Thank you so much for the love. Don't forget to check out yesterday's video where I covered this amazing Malekith discard list. And in addition, if you're willing to, check out one of my streams when you get a chance. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you tomorrow for another Snap Take, maybe later today. Who knows? We'll see when things get all sorted. Peace.